for a new week of Celtics news to discuss. As you're watching Celtics Today by Chat Sports, and I am your host, Tyler Smith. Are the Boston Celtics signing Ben Simmons in free agency? They are reportedly pretty interested. We'll talk about that on today's show. And then a trade with the Grizzlies. There's rumors around Brad Stevens maybe making a call with the folks over in Memphis about making a trade this offseason. We'll talk about all that and more in just a moment. But I could not start today's show without at least addressing a little bit of an elephant in the room, per se, here. As Shams Charania had tweeted out over the weekend that our good old buddy Marcus Smart is joining a new team. And I'm not too happy about it. I'm sure you are not either. He reached a buyout agreement with the Washington Wizards and is signing a 2-year, $11 million deal with the Los Angeles Lakers. I'm not happy about this at all. I'm sure Celtics fans are pretty distraught with this news. There was actually rumored interest about the Celtics potentially wanting a reunion with Smart if he ended up getting bought out, but he decided to go with a team that's probably a little bit more positioned to contend next season. It is disgusting regardless. So with that being said, I want to hear from you guys in the comments section. Just quick little news dump right there. Smart to the Lakers. One-word reaction. Drop a word down in the comment section of how you feel about Marcus Smart wearing purple and gold. I'm ready to about throw up. So you let me know what your one-word reaction is down in the comment section. Mine's disgusted. I am absolutely. This is gross. This is not something that I ever anticipated. I actually was talking with Jeffrey Cooperstein here at Chat Sports, who kind of grew up around Marcus Smart, and he was saying that he grew up a Lakers fan. So it's good for him, and I'm happy to see that he'll be back in a contending situation. He's only played like 20 games each of the last 3 years, so happy to see that he'll be in a spot where he'll have a big opportunity and an opportunity to win. So hats off to Marcus, but I am absolutely enraged that it is in purple and gold. Let's move forward, though, and talk about a Celtics free agent target that could be a possibility at this point. That's Ben Simmons, as the Celtics reportedly have interest in signing him as he looks to potentially get around a vet minimum deal of sorts. Can still provide a good bit on the basketball court, and is just only 27 years old to this point. Marc Stein reported this over the weekend, saying, league sources say that the Suns have also had some recent dialogue with the former All-Star Ben Simmons, who I'm told has drawn interest since free agency started from Boston, New York, and Sacramento. So is signing Ben Simmons a good idea? Well, we know the big limitation in his game, right? And it's the fact that this guy can't shoot outside of 3 feet. And even inside of 3 feet, sometimes he's hesitant to do so. But the other tools that he possesses on the basketball court, elite defensive versatility, can guard, 3s, 4s, 5s, even some backcourt players as well. And also, the elite vision is still there. Like there's things in between the ears for Ben Simmons that will never fade. But he's not really living up to the number one pick standards. He never really has outside of that initial season that he had with Philly back in the day. Then ends up getting traded to Brooklyn in the James Harden deal, and then doesn't really do much there. Ends up finding his way over to the Clippers, and he was solid in his time that he got this past season, but it was never really the Clippers having a ton of trust in Ben Simmons, especially down the stretch of basketball games. He's a guy who doesn't space the floor, so he's not necessarily going to be a huge asset for you on the offensive end, in clutch time situations. But he can still dish out assists. He can still, grab rebounds. He's a big player, so I'm not entirely off of the Ben Simmons train here. Like, I think he can still provide value and still belongs in rotations in this league. And to be honest with you guys, I think it would be absolutely hysterical if the Celtics went out there and signed Ben Simmons and he was good. Like, he was actually like a serviceable player and, bought into being a complementary role player on this team. A guy who can set screens and be a good playmaker out of the short roll and just open up a lot more for the Celtics offense, because he is, he still has a little bit of gravity. He can still attack the rim. He's still a big body. I would love if he kind of had a little bit of a career resurgence. I'm not saying it's going to be something super long-term, but if he had a little bit of a bounce back to his career a little bit, played big minutes for a Celtics team that has openings in the front court next season and produced, that would be the funniest thing ever to me, to see Sixers fans just cry as the Celtics got their scraps and turned it into gold once again. You let me know in the comment section. What do you think? Should the Celtics sign Ben Simmons? Really good defender still. Has good vision and it's still a valuable piece in the NBA. Just is probably going to be around that vet minimum contract, which the Celtics can afford at this point. Should they sign him? Yes or no? You let me know down in the comments section. I would say yes, because you can't really afford to be picky at this point. Like I just mentioned, with the C's front court, there's a good chance that Xavier Tillman is going to play a lot of minutes, and I'm not so sure that he's an NBA player at this point anymore. And you got Neemias Queta, you got Luka Garza, Marc Williams, so much unproven talent. And I'm not sitting here acting like Ben Simmons is the most proven commodity in the entire league. His history with injuries and overall, like, just, I don't know, bad attitude is really struck a nerve with a lot of people. And that's a reason that at 27 years old, he's only getting vet minimum contracts at this point. But he's a big body. The Celtics are pretty dog shit in the front court, for lack of a better word, and I wouldn't mind signing him for the vet min. With that being said, we'll talk more in just a moment, but I got to tell you guys about this awesome deal that we have with our friends over at Fanatics. Like, I want to think about the good times. I want to reminisce on winning a title back in 2024, so that's why I went out and got myself this Celtics 2024 championship t-shirt. Not only because it's fresh, but also because it's going for the low. You see that $17 for this elite shirt? It's got the caricatures of all the contributors from last season, and I just want to reminisce on when there was confetti falling from the TD Garden ceiling. So go get yours today at this link right here, chatsports.com/champ sale. And don't worry, I made it easy for you guys. I put that link in the comments section and description for you guys to make it easy for you. So go down below, click that link, and get yourself a 2024 title shirt today. All right, let's talk about it. A Celtics-Grizzlies trade is it potentially on the horizon as Brad Stevens continues to, at least peruse the rest of the league to gauge what teams want as far as players that are open to being traded on the Boston Celtics. And the Grizzlies, they have a couple of guys that, I would be intrigued in as far as taking some flyers if the Celtics wanted to get off of some money. Jake Fisher said this about the C's and their trade pursuits potentially with Memphis over the weekend. He said, as we discussed, I think the Celtics are still very active in taking trade calls, maybe even making trade calls. There was some conversation last week between Memphis and Boston about something. We're still looking to track down more info on that, but rival teams are definitely still under the impression that Boston is looking for deals involving both Anfernee Simons and Georges Niang. Now, my question here is less about Anfernee Simons, because we'll talk about him in just a moment and how the Celtics are probably looking to move him. But who would Boston be looking to target on the Memphis Grizzlies? You're not getting John Morant. You're not getting Jaren Jackson. You're not getting Santi Aldama, a restricted free agent who they just extended. So there aren't a ton of crazy needle movers on the roster, but if you kind of pile together a bunch of young up and coming front court players that Memphis has to offer, then maybe the Celtics would be intrigued by a deal like that. Like the one that we brought up a couple of days ago when we were going through Anfernee Simons trade ideas. This was one that kind of got brought up that brings Brandon Clark, Vince Williams, and John Konchar to Boston in exchange for Simons. A couple of smaller contracts, ones that are easy to flip, ones that maybe a team that's competing down the line this season would like to trade for at the deadline so they could get some draft assets or future capital back in another further deal. I like the way that it kind of breaks up the money and gives Celtics more flexibility to make deals down the line. I'm not saying that this group of players, I like Brandon Clark, but he's nothing super special. I'm not saying these group of players is going to move the needle for you, but it's just going to make you more flexible, when you want to make moves down the line, which is what we know Brad Stevens wants to do. Now, is there actual legs to this? Well, I wouldn't say we have a source off, but Brett Siegel did report this, saying, adding some context to the whole report. He said the Celtics-Grizzlies trade rumors came up during the third day of Summer League, I believe. So we're talking about a while ago at this point. Summer League just wrapped up. Congrats to the Hornets. He said the two teams that did not engage in trade talks at Summer League, and it started because of Boston's pursuit of Damian Lillard. So not really something that's realistic at this point. Dame's back to Portland, so how realistic is a Memphis trade? Well, Siegel kind of laid the hammer down, poured a little bit of cold water on it, saying this: there isn't any trade. It was Boston exploring Anfernee Simons' market and seeing what they could possibly get, in addition to freeing up money that would have been utilized on Dame. No trade ever materialized because Lillard wasn't going to Boston. So there you have it. Doesn't really look like there's a Memphis and Boston trade on the horizon at this point. Talks could always engage once again if Brad was, I guess, keen on the package that Memphis potentially was throwing back for Anfernee Simons, because I think that they still are open to trading Anfernee Simons. Marc Stein further reported this actually just last night. He said, league sources say that Boston continues to explore trade options with newly acquired Anfernee Simons, who became a Celtics part of the Drew Holiday deal. The Stein reported back in late June that the Simons was a retrade candidate, and it is believed that that is still the case. I get it. You want to move off as much money as possible. You want to minimize the luxury tax penalties as best you can. But I will say part of me wants to see Simons as a Celtic. I think that his play style, his athleticism, the fact that he's still only 26 years old, really, gives you a decent, not building block, but player that you can gamble on here in an expiring contract, God forbid, he performs for you and you get him on a new deal if it's around $20 to $25 million a year after this season. Like, he's 26 years old. He fits the Jays timeline. I want to see if he can be a winner. All we've seen from Anfernee Simons so far in his career is him on a losing basketball team up in Portland. For a long time, they were really directionless, to be quite honest with you. And now he's in a team that I know is in a gap year, and it's probably one of the more uncertain Boston Celtics seasons in recent memory, but it's still much more of a winning environment and culture than Anfernee Simons has ever been in at the professional level. So I would be really, really open to at least starting the season with him and seeing what we have in the 26-year-old. Brad Stevens also mentioned this about Simons, kind of talking him up to the media. He said, Anfernee's a guy that people out here probably didn't see as much of because of the time that they play. But his ability to score, to shoot the ball, really make hard shots is pretty elite. And you look at a guy that's 26 years old and averaging 20 a game for 3 straight years. Like, that's not like a slouch. Like, I understand the loss of love for these small scoring guards that really don't give you much on the defensive end. But like, there's a lot to like about Anfernee Simons' game. And Brad could just be hyping him up for trade value, wanting to kind of just overall raise the floor of what teams think of Simons and trading for him across the league. But I do think that Brad believes a lot in what he said. He wouldn't have made the deal if he didn't think that the return back for Holiday was solid, because that was the actual chip that they had to trade this. If they were going to get back any value this summer, it was going to go in the Drew Holiday trade, not the KP one, as we know at this point. So I'm confident in Simons, and I would be willing to see what we have with him to start the season. But if the Celtics aren't, this is kind of where I'm wrapping it all up, the Celtics are not going to be in contention this season. So if they believe that they see, a couple of games, couple of months of Anfernee Simons in green, and they don't see a reason to extend him long term, then look, I'm just going to trade him. I'm going to get value back. I'm going to minimize my penalties for the end of the season because, you can only make that deal right before the deadline, and then the luxury tax penalties hit once the season ends with whatever your payroll was to end that regular season. So we'll see what all materializes, but I would be willing to trade him if the Celtics do not think that he is going to be an extension candidate, and we've yet to see if that's going to be the case because he hasn't taken the floor yet. But what do you guys think? What do you do with Anfernee Simons? Do you trade him this offseason? Do you trade him in the season? Or do you keep him around for the whole 25-26 campaign and potentially down the line? There's a lot of answers you could go with here. So let me know in the comment section. What would you do with Anfernee Simons? Keep him or trade him? That will do it for today's edition of Celtics Today by Chat Sports. Lock us in for the best Celtics content all offseason long. We'll see you guys in the next one. And as always, let's go C's.